Hi there. The book by Peter Consterdine, which I'm reviewing, is one of several he's written, and it's his most recent, and I've reviewed several of his previous books already. But the current book is kind of a distillation of his experience, his vast experience in the field of self-protection, teaching many people, including other instructors. And one of the things that the book highlights is the deficiencies in traditional martial arts when applied to self-protection. Now, the martial arts are great for sport. They're good means of exercise and they can be a good social exchange. But when it comes to self-protection, in realistic street situations, then you have to modify your training and modify the syllabus to take away what is applicable. And Peter highlights this most dramatically in the book. Really, there are really only two categories of people who are qualified to talk about the realities of violent confrontation by engaging in them on a regular basis, and they're police officers and doormen. Anyone else who's regularly getting into fights is probably a sociopath of some sort. You probably don't really want to learn from them. And out of those two categories, the police tend to rely on, or particularly the UK police, tend to rely on weight of numbers and also weapons. Things like the taser, the spray, the baton. Doormen, on the other hand, in the modern era, under video surveillance, don't have any weapons and don't usually have a large team to have on call at any given moment and have to do the job. So for any civilian wanting to learn self-protection, the lessons from Frontline security on the doors may be much more applicable than those from the police. A question I've asked many of my colleagues is, if in your city, if all the doormen went on strike one weekend and for some reason the police agreed to take their place on the doors, how long would it be before punters were tasered? Whereas the doormen have to do the job without such equipment, and therefore they have to rely on other things, sometimes verbal skills, sometimes empty hand skills, and so on. One of the things Peter emphasises and has always emphasised in his books is preemptives, and it comes across in the current volume very, very strongly. Now, it seems in modern times that preemptives are looked upon with disfavour. And for example, the SIA, if you bring up the subject of preemptives, they clutch their pearls in horror. But legally, you're quite entitled to use preemptive force, and Peter gives the reasons for this in the book. And for that reason alone, the book is well worth the price. It gives you the legal backing for use of preemptives under current UK legislations. Now, one of the main problems with the traditional martial arts is that they offer a plethora of techniques, many of which are very, very complex as well. And many of the martial arts really are set up to counter attacks from their own martial art. You know, judo versus judo, karate versus karate, aikido versus aikido, and so on. And they don't really think outside of their own particular art. or that has been the case mainly. And I was given this reality of the difference between the traditional martial arts and what you need in the street very, very early in my training. When I joined the Red Triangle and was doing Shotokan, I was a regular at the Cavern Club in Liverpool where Terry was working on the door. And on my next visit, within a couple of weeks of my starting at the Triangle, I introduced myself to Terry and had a conversation with him, which is really the start of our friendship. And one of the very, very first things he said was he alerted me to the fact that what we were doing was Karate Do, which is a sport. And the martial arts, or the Jitsu martial arts, the forms, were the real fighting systems. And then I understood that in an intellectual way, but it was hammered home to me years later when I started working on the doors. And likewise, Peter Consterdine worked on the doors in Manchester for, I think, 8 years and gained that experience. And it's that mix of the traditional background giving you the credentials to criticize something and the actual frontline experience, which is invaluable. Peter started spreading these ideas by writing in the martial arts magazines, as did Jeff Thompson. They were writing in different magazines, sometimes the same magazine, and I was writing in fighting arts. So the three of us were kind of spreading our ideas on realistic self-protection at the same time. And the amazing thing is that all three of us are still involved in training and teaching all these decades later. There have been a lot of other very good instructors come along, and many of them have trained with Pete and Jeff, and are members of the British Combat Association, which they run. One of the main problems in self-protection is edge weapon defence, and it's probably the area which most nonsense has been written. In the early self-defence books and in my first training in judo as a schoolboy, it was regarded as fairly simple. You know, the guy came in with a knife in a choreographed manner and you did a defence and a throw or a defence and a counter. But Peter gives much more of the reality of it. And I think a lot of us were kind of woken up to this when the Filipino martial arts were introduced. I mean, I remember Don Drager showing us his movies he made out in Southeast Asia of people using the blades in a most effective manner. And he turned to Terry and I and he said, "What would you do against that?" And Peter quotes Stephen Stavers, a Second World War US Marine Corps instructor. And I'll quote it in full because it's well worth it. No bare-handed disarming technique is dependable against even a fair knife fighter. Trying to disarm a truly scientific knife fighter would be trying to stop a propeller with bare hands. He went on to say, indeed, the appearance of the scientific knife fighter in action suggests a flashing propeller on the head of a cobra, to use an extravagant metaphor. He uses a slashing attack rather than thrusting or stabbing, with the knife pointed forward in a loose, flexible manner, the blade flat and the cutting edge outwards. The blade is in constant control lateral motion at the same time moving in, out, high and low. That has not been bettered. From World War II to today, I can't find a better description. The modern instructors who have the realistic training would all agree with that. It's such a difficult task to try and cope with somebody who knows how to use a knife, assuming that you see the knife in the first place. All good instructors use metaphor to get across their points, and Peter has created metaphors such as the hourglass and the logjam effect, which explains sort of how difficult it can be to make decisions because of the number of options that you have loaded your proverbial armory with. And he explains that very, very well. He also came up with the concept of action triggers, which is rather a unique training and operational device, which again the book explains fully. Peter is an advocate of hard training. He's been training all his life severely. It's a daily thing, and hill running, weight training, endurance work, speed work, all the things you need to do. He made a video many years ago called Training Day, and it was a video of one of their sessions, and it was awesome. Really was inspiring as well. So he encourages anybody who wants to look after themselves to first look after their bodies. So there are many ways of learning: videos, DVDs, online, hands-on training, and books all offer a different way of training. And books give you the ability to get across concepts, tactics, mindset, procedures, that kind of thing. And Peter has put into this book everything that you can get out of a book. So he's not tried to use the book to get across stuff that's better done in a video, step-by-step technique drawings, which are better done on a video. But he's gives you all the things that you need to know, which you can sit down, you can take in at leisure, think about, and assimilate. And the book, at the current price of less than £2, is amazing value. Can't think of a better way of spending a couple of quid. Having said that, if you get a chance to go on a seminar with Peter, don't miss it. Because whether you are a student, whether you're an instructor, police officer, a doorman, or you're just interested in looking after yourself and staying safe, go along to one of Peter's seminars. Get it from the horse's mouth. And I guarantee you'll get a lot from it, and you'll also enjoy it. Training with one of the originals.